Welcome to Journey to Esquire, the podcast. I'm Jocelyn Hardrick, founder and president of Diversity Access Pipeline, Inc., the company behind this podcast and other great programs, like Journey to Esquire Scholarship and Leadership Program, which provides $2,000 cash scholarships to third-year law students and internships to second-year law students, along with leadership training and mentors. And Journey to Esquire, the blog, which provides insightful articles to help navigate you through law school and beyond. Find out more on our website, www.journeytoesquire.com. Hey, it's Jocelyn Hardrick, and welcome back to Journey to Esquire, the podcast. I'm the founder and director of Diversity Access Pipeline, the nonprofit behind this podcast. And I'm so excited today because we have a great guest, Kymberly Porter. Kymberly is an assistant district attorney in Alabama, and she does some great services through her company called The Porter Solution. She's going to talk a little bit more about that at the end of the podcast, but let me give a little background. Kymberly went to the University of South Alabama, where she graduated with a degree in political science, and she knew she wanted to be a lawyer when she graduated, but she did take some time off, and she ultimately landed at Faulkner University, Thomas Goode Jones School of Law in Montgomery, Alabama. She had an outstanding time, great work while she was there, and eventually graduated. During her third year of law school, she was vice president of BALSA. Go BALSA! I was in BALSA, love BALSA in law school. And I always recommend students get into those student orgs. And she was studying for the bar exam during the pandemic. So I know there are a lot of people who can relate to that. She passed the Alabama bar exam on her first attempt and was immediately hired to her current position. And so what she's done is she's taken the lessons that she learned to help students in figuring it out during that first year of law school, upon graduation, during the bar exam, because once we figured it out, we don't want other people to have to try to figure it out like we did. Welcome, Kymberly.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for joining us. So we're going to talk about your journey to Esquire. Tell us, when did you first think that you wanted to be a lawyer?
It's a bit cliche, but I'll just say I've always wanted to be a lawyer from childhood. I was about 7 years old, and I don't have any particular show or thing that pointed me that way. It was more so just my love of reading and figuring out that I could argue a little bit. Sometimes it got me into a bit of trouble, but that's kind of what sparked my interest.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I have a similar story. For me, it was Claire Huxtable on The Cosby Show, and then Maxine Shaw on, Living Single. But I'm a little older than you, so some of those shows are reruns by the time you were watching them, and a lot of our listeners were. So then, we talked a little bit about you graduated from college in Alabama. But something interesting happened while you were in college. What happened there?
Yes, I had a beautiful bouncing baby girl. So my undergraduate degree is from the University of South Alabama, but that's not where I started. I actually started at Alabama A&M University in Huntsville, or Normal, Alabama, for the Bulldogs. Go Bulldogs! And I was almost done, actually. I went through 4 years. I was 7 classes away from graduation. And then a pregnancy test popped up, and it was positive. And so that kind of took a little detour, if you will. I took a little time off with my daughter, about 2 years, and then I transferred all of my credits to University of South Alabama in Mobile, because that's where I'm originally from, and that's where I had the family support. So I transferred and finished in a couple more years at University of South Alabama, and that's where I got my undergrad degree.
Oh, wow. So a lot of our students actually have that same story. A lot of people listening, might have that same story and wondering, okay, am I going to be able to do this law school thing with a child, especially if it's kind of like a surprise, a pleasant, beautiful surprise, but still a surprise. And you talked about family support, so that's really important. So what were your thoughts when you were applying to law school? Was family support really important? And what were some of the other factors you considered when you're trying to figure out which law schools you were going to apply to?
Definitely family support. My family was in Mobile, and so I knew that I needed to apply to schools that were within driving distance. And what kind of made me feel this way is by the time I was applying to law school, my daughter was 6 years old. She was 7 by the time I started. But when she was an infant, not even a year old yet, we went on a trip to Huntsville to visit some friends. And I had a health scare, and I ended up in the emergency room with an infant and me, and trying to figure out how to navigate my own health scare with my baby. And I'm like, well, how is someone going to take care of me and I take care of my baby? And so, of course, while I'm at the hospital, I made a couple of calls, and people were able to drive to get to me so that they could help with my baby. But that kind of just opened my eyes. And it turned out it was a gallbladder issue, and I ended up needing to have emergency surgery. And I'm like, man, if I were 12 hours away and they're talking about having surgery tomorrow, what could I possibly do? I have a baby, and it's just me and her. So definitely making sure I was within driving distance of my family. I knew that I wouldn't have any family where I was going, but I needed to be within driving distance so that they could get to me in the event that anything popped up. And so that's kind of what led me to my law school.
Okay, so that one kept you pretty local. Did you apply to more law schools even though you ended up at Faulkner?
I did not. I have a very unique journey to law school, to undergrad and law school also. Let me just say, without being at all braggadocious, I am smart, but for years I was lazy. And so I literally ended up first at Alabama A&M University simply because I walked into a college fair. They had the tables lined up alphabetically. I went to Alabama A&M first, and they admitted me and gave me a scholarship on the spot. I didn't even walk to any more tables.
Wow.
Because why? And that is not the way that you should be. You should definitely flesh out all of your options. Like you could see who's going to offer what might be best, what programs. No, I did none of that. And so similarly with law school, I had a couple in mind that were then about 4 or 5 hours. Montgomery is about 2.5 hours from Mobile, and so it was the closest. But once I visited the campus, and while I was on my visit, I had not yet applied officially, but I was speaking with the guide, and she was asking me different things, and she was like, well, you should apply because you'll probably get a scholarship. So I did. And
ding ding, that's the right word, scholarship.
Exactly, because at this point I'm almost 30 years old applying to law school in a city that I don't know anyone. Y'all gonna pay me? Y'all gonna pay for me to go? Oh, okay, yeah, that's all y'all had to say. And so literally they admitted me and gave me a scholarship, and so I went.
Oh wow. So that's, actually I meet a lot of people like you who are smart and lazy. I mean, they do well in law school, but they're like, wait, I gotta work. Like, I've never had to study. I would always just cram, and I was good. And I tell my students now as a professor, I know y'all are smart. This is not about intellectual capacity. You do have to put in the work. And here's what the work is. And yeah, I know it sounds like a lot, and you don't believe me right now, but I would rather you find out early than after the final exam. So now you're in law school with you said 7-year-old. She's 7 at the time you're starting. Do you end up enjoying law school, and how do you balance having a young child in law school?
Jesus, I don't have another answer. I did a whole lot of praying and a whole lot of time management. And honestly, I'll say that I would probably have been closer to the crash and burn had I not had my child. But me having a child kind of made it I don't have a plan B. It was more of a non-negotiable to succeed. And so I was like, man, I just got to figure this out. And once I realized kind of the setup, I realized that there was a curve, had no idea about the curve or average GPA or any of those things. I had no idea that classes would come down to one final exam. And so once I realized all of these things, I kind of went into overdrive, and I literally planned out every hour of my day. My calendar, my planner was a regular planner, and then I had Post-it notes that had an hourly schedule to say what I should be doing and when, and I just had to make it work. I would schedule when I have to take my daughter to school, pick her up, feed her, all of those things. And so, I mean, I just did the best I could.
Yeah, and that's what I hear from a lot of parents who are in school, a lot of single moms in law school. Some of my students, my classmates, students in our program, and they have a similar story. That's their motivation, so it kept them going. So talk a little bit about, the activities you were involved in, because sometimes people think, well, I'm a parent, I can't fit in the student orgs, the moot court mock trial, but there's a lot of benefit and value if you choose the right ones and use time management. So what were you involved in?
That was exactly my strategy as well. I knew that I couldn't do everything, but I knew that I had to do something for a couple of reasons. I don't know any lawyers. I didn't have any in my family, first gen, all of that. And so I was like, well, I need to try and make my resume look as good as possible. And so I need extracurriculars. I need experience in all of these things. And so when I got there, I was like, well, I know for sure I want to do mock trial. That I want to do because I want to be in the courtroom. Got to do that. I actually didn't know that BALSA existed before I got to law school. So that wasn't necessarily on the list, but mock trial was. I was like, I've got to do that. And so once I got to law school and kind of got the lay of the land, I was like, oh, these are my people. I need to be with my people. Because, I mean, my school is a majority white school. And so it was imperative for me to have the community, to have the support, students that understood where I was coming from and what I was trying to do. And so BALSA was definitely a pick. And then I also, once I got there, realized that people like law review. Employers like it. They like to see that you've done it. Having done law review, it's really strange to me that people like it to hire folks, because I mean, there is absolutely nothing that I do as a lawyer that I can correlate to law review. Like, I mean, I'm legit proofreading on law review. I mean, it's not, I'm not honing writing skills by proofreading other than, oh, I see you've made this mistake. But however, that's what I chose. I chose to do mock trial, law review, and BALSA. And I did all three of those to the best of my ability. My child was a BALSA baby. She was at all of the meetings, all of the events. Everybody knows her. She literally lived at the school with me. So when I had practice for a trial competition coming up, she was there as well. It was to the point where my mom came to visit once, and my daughter decided that she wanted to do the tour of the school for my mom and didn't want me to do it. And she did it just fine. She showed her all of the things because she had been all over that school. And so that's kind of what I did. I just, wherever I was, that's where she had to be as well. It worked out just fine. I have so many pictures of her in the law library with me as I'm in there studying or preparing or whatever I'm doing. But I mean, she was a good kid and wasn't like rambunctious or anything like that. So all of my pictures are her sitting somewhere on her tablet, just kind of doing and watching whatever kids are playing with on YouTube or whatever. So it was just a matter of making sure, hey, she's going to be with me. Whether it's I need to bring snacks and food while she's there or whatever, she's got to be with me. And so I still did plenty of extracurricular things and still was able to be a mom as well.
Yeah, and it helps for the children see what you're doing. Because if they don't, then all they know is you're away somewhere working, and they never get a sense of what you're doing. And hopefully, that becomes something she thinks about when she gets older, when she's thinking about what she wants to do, and saying, I'm going to be creative like my mom, right? I'm not just going to look at something and see a barrier or obstacle. I'm going to say, okay, how can I make this work? So those are great tips. Bring the kids, involve them, bring them to the fun events too. We love seeing the kids as professors. So do your classmates. And so now you did really well in law school. You're getting ready to graduate. What was it like when you first started looking for a job?
Terrifying. And mainly because, I started looking for a job before I graduated. Obviously, it was probably fall of my 3L year when I started, okay, let me find job fairs. Let me see, what openings are being posted, what I need to do. And I wasn't getting much traction. And I found out that I was maybe going at it a little bit early because it was still the fall and there were 2 semesters to go. And people didn't want to hire 6-8 months in advance. Then I started again in the spring, and then COVID hit. So my second semester of 3L year was the craziest time because I literally started that semester in classes, doing all of the things. In fact, the very first time I heard anything about COVID, just the word COVID, I was on a trip at a BALSA convention at the annual convention. And so I was not even in town. And I was on the phone with my daughter and she said that they mentioned it at school. And so we went through the first part of that semester. We went on spring break and never came back. So that put things to a grinding halt as far as looking for a job and all of that. Then once I graduated, I said, okay, well, I still see postings. So I went ahead and applied and started doing interviews. Let me just tell you, interviewing over Zoom is the weirdest thing. There's no eye contact because first of all, they're not looking at the camera, because if they're not speaking, especially if it's a panel, man, it's the worst. They're not looking at the camera. So you're staring at people that are staring at their notepads. You can't really make a connection. It's hard to be personable over Zoom. And then, you're popping from one person to the other with questions. It was just not at all comfortable, not fun. And so I applied and I did some interviews and I'm like, okay, well, this is getting scary. By this point, I had not even taken the bar yet. I sat for the bar and got all the way through waiting all that time to get my results. Still looking, still applying, not really hearing anything because people kind of wanted to wait and see what the bar results would be. And then I got my results and I'm like, okay, great, I passed. Now what? And so I'm still applying. And I actually happened upon my current job because I applied at the Tuscaloosa County Public Defender's Office. And I came up, I interviewed. My sister's mother-in-law was living in Tuscaloosa. And when she found out I was here and why I was here, she was like, well, why didn't you apply at the DA's office? I said, well, I sent them my resume months ago, but I never heard anything. And she was like, oh, well, I'll just tell them that you sent your resume. I actually know the DA. And I was like, oh, okay, well, great. And so she told them that my resume had already been sent. They pulled my resume, and then I was back the next week for an interview with the DA's office and was hired the day after that interview. And so it was a lot of hurry up and wait. And then I waited, and then things moved like popcorn. I was interviewing on a Wednesday, got the job offer on a Thursday, accepted it on Friday, and the following Wednesday I was in Tuscaloosa to work. Mind you, I don't live in Tuscaloosa. So things were really, really crazy during that time.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I graduated law school in 2009, people were hiring 8 months in advance. So by the time my second, the summer after my second year is when I got the offer. So I have a whole, 3L year of just relaxing, studying for the bar. No problem. I got a job on the other side, but that has definitely shifted in recent years, especially because of COVID. A lot of people are just trying to figure out what their budgets are looking like, and they just are not willing to hire in advance. So I just want to, anyone listening, just know that is the trend now. They like to hire a little closer to when you're graduating. And now some places are just waiting to see if you pass. They want to know if you passed first, because the bar passage rates have been rough from July 2022. Fingers crossed for February 2023 and July 2023. But we're talking about in the 50% range for Florida, California, and other places. And that's on the lower side. So now you're working, you're a district attorney, yay. But somehow, even with your daughter, you found time to get involved in the Porter solution. So, we're a diversity organization. We always want to talk about some aspect of diversity. It sounds like you were involved, so you definitely understood this sense of creating a community wherever you are, and a sense of belonging and support. And it can be based on affinity, like, your race, your gender, your ethnicity, your practice area. I mean, there's all kinds of things. So what motivated you to get into the Porter solution?
Honestly, a random conversation with a friend of mine who she is very much business oriented and business minded. Let me start by saying I've always said that I'd never be an entrepreneur. It ain't for me. I need somebody else signing my paychecks. I don't need the stress. Let me just go to work and come home and cash my paycheck. But I was talking with a friend, and she had recently started a business, and we were just kind of chatting, and we were talking about law school and all of the stuff that I did during law school. And a lot of what I did during law school was tutoring other students, helping out other students, whether it be one-on-one, group, what have you. I was always explaining the law to someone else, explaining some concept to someone else. And she was like, people will pay you for that, right? And I was like, what? What are you talking about? No, I'm just helping folks out. And she was like, well, it's fine that you're helping folks out, and that's good, and that's a really nice thing. But also you can be compensated for your time and for your experience and your knowledge and expertise. And I was like, maybe she's right. Because here I am, having already graduated, and still students that I knew previously are reaching out to me, and students that I knew previously are also passing my information to one else that I've never met, because they see someone who needs help, and the first thought in their mind is, oh, Kymberly can help. And so I was like, well, maybe she's right. And so that's what kind of got my mind churning about it. And then I also realized that when I talked to many of my students, they were just like me. They didn't know what they were getting into going to law school. They just knew they wanted to be a lawyer. And so they had no idea the things that they needed to do. They didn't know how to prepare, how to study. They didn't know what to expect. They didn't know how to choose supplements, if they even knew what a supplement was. And so I was like, well, dang, this is why we wash it out right here. Like, people are literally dropping out or failing out of law school, and it's not because they can't do the work. It's because they don't know what work they have to do. And I can help. I can tell them what work they have to do and tell them how to do it. And so that's kind of how I got the idea for the Porter solution, and also the motivation behind what I do. I really and truly just like to see people succeed. I like to see people get through what they thought was super hard. And so that's great.
Yeah, so you say when we are failing out, right, with first gen students, right? Yes. Students of color, students who are parents, non-traditional students like us, because I took a 4-year break, right? All these boxes, all the people who are just trying to enter and are newly entering the legal field, we're not making it. I just saw a statistic that said 49% of Black college graduates who apply to law school don't get into any law schools. So even those of us who just got into law school, we've overcome some serious odds. And like you said, it's not an intellectual capacity issue. It's a resources issue. It's a knowledge issue. Like, oh, I did, like you said, like some of my students don't realize other people are using supplements. I'm like, there's a supplement that helps you with that. Yeah, I do it in class and everything because I know it can get expensive, but those students are confused too, right? They're just going to someone and getting help. And so I'm encouraging you to do the same thing. This isn't, I got to do this for myself, every man for himself. I got to prove myself. No, we're going to get there together, and you don't have to do it alone. So how do you spread the word about the Porter solution? Because you said it was word of mouth at first, and now that you have it like an official business, you have a website and everything. How do you typically get clients, and who do you work with?
I have a marketing manager who keeps my life like just going. I often tell her that if I did not have her, it just wouldn't get done. Her name's Angel Sames, and she does marketing for many small business owners, many women-owned businesses, and she's superb. And she does all of my social media marketing. So if you see me post, 9 times out of 10, Angel wrote the post and Angel probably posted it as well. I do comment, I do return DMs and inboxes and emails and things of that nature. But as far as outreach and just getting the word out that my company exists and what we do, that is all Angel, and she definitely is wonderful at what she does, because as we've already established, I work. I am a single mom, and depending on the semester, I might be working 2 jobs because I also teach criminal law at the university. And so it is a lot. And trying to add on top of that, remember to post, remember to write the post, remember to schedule the post. Don't forget to take the picture. Don't forget to record the reel. Girl, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. So that's why I have Angel. And she was able to work really well with me, and we have had strategy meetings so that she can understand who I help and why I help them and how I help them, because a lot of my posts, reading them, you would not know that they are written by someone who has no idea about anything law school related other than what she reads on the internet. But that's because we talk about it. We have discussed kind of what law school looks like, how you get through law school, how I got through law school, and what I'm trying to help people do. And so generally, I help students who are like me. I help students who are intelligent, they're naturally gifted, they are able to comprehend the information, but up until now, they haven't had to study. They haven't had to work hard, and they've got to figure it out, and they've got to figure it out fast. I am here to help those students because you don't get but one shot, and you've got to make it count. And so when that is the case, it is much better to discuss it with someone who already knows how to do what you're trying to do. That's kind of what we do. I never tell a student what to expect on their exam because I don't write their exam. However, I can definitely tell them how to organize their thoughts, how to organize the material that they've learned, and how to present that in a way in which their professor will realize that they have a good grasp of the information. And I can also help them to study in a way that their brain actually learns. So they're not just glossing over the material and they hear mens rea and they're like, oh yeah, I remember that. I've heard that before. But they can't really...
They can't tell you what it means.
Mens rea is. And so I also help students with that as well, because a lot of times, and this happens in study groups quite often, they become echo chambers, and you hear all of these things and you've been studying for hours, and all of the things that are being said, they resonate, they make sense, you agree with them 100%, and so you think you know the material, but you aren't the one that's saying it, and you can't actually articulate it, and that's what's going to be required on that exam. So I help students to learn how to do that.
That's a very good point. I just had that happen in my criminal law class. I asked the student, what's the mens rea? And they heard it, and I said, remember, you can't just, if you look at Bloom's taxonomy, which is something I talk about with metacognition, thinking about how you think and thinking about how you learn. You all are in the bottom where all you have to do is understand and repeat something. No. I need you to be able to articulate what it is and then apply it to a new set of facts. So if you can't do that, you're in trouble in law school. So yeah, so you're speaking my language with, helping students understand how they learn and helping students who are like you. And the big message I get from your story right now, know your worth and your value and be willing to charge what you're worth. Even though you love it and enjoy it and are helping people, you are investing a lot of time. So in order to make it something that's sustainable, you can generate income from it. So that's number one, especially Black women. There's a movement now that we're like, listen, all of us just giving our skills and expertise away for free. That needs to end, because lots of other people are making the very good money doing exactly what we do with the same skills. And then the second part is, go ahead.
Hard to do that. It's really hard to do that because it really is a labor of love. But then when I look at the depth to which I go with my students and the pre-work that I do and how I'm preparing materials specifically for them, specifically with the materials that they need and they've been using, and I think about, man, I'm literally taking all of this time, all of this energy, and I don't mind doing it. But it is most certainly fair to ask to be compensated for that.
Yeah, and you have a daughter. That time goes away from your daughter, right? And so in order to justify that, you can measure whether it's worth it or not and say, okay, if I charge you $5,000, yeah, this is worth my time. If I charge you $1,000 and I'm looking at my daughter like, I'd rather spend time with my daughter than make this $1,000 right now, those decisions get easier. And then the other thing is, if you have a weakness, get someone that's their strength and have them help you. So the marketing. So I'm gonna definitely get her name and we're gonna put it in the show notes because I need a marketing manager right now because I do bar coaching for our students in the program and for some of the students in my school. And that's what one of the students said. She said, the people you had come speak to us that do what you're doing, they charge $5,000 and you're doing it for free. I said, hold on, it's not free. It comes as a package with the program. That's why I go deep. But now you see that there is an actual value to this. This isn't just me being nice, And so students need to recognize that if somebody is taking out their time to help you prepare your law school application, review your essays, help you in law school, help you with the bar exam, you better believe that is valuable. And if you don't value it, let that person go. Because this is a lot of work and there's not everyone who has access to it. Not everyone's willing to do it for free. So if you got it, make sure you are grateful for it. So thank you so much, Kymberly. Tell everyone how they can reach you. And I'm assuming you can work with people all over the country, or do you have a region? Tell them your website, your hashtags, your social media tags. How can they find you?
So yes, I work with students all over the country. I can be found on my website, which is theportersolution.com. And I am on Instagram at The Porter Solution. I'm on Facebook, which is once again The Porter Solution. And I'm on LinkedIn, which is my first and last name, Kymberly, spelled with a Y, Kymberly Porter. And either of those routes, they can reach me, they can reach out, and I absolutely love meeting new students and seeing how we can help and how we can work together.
All right. Thank you so much, Kymberly.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to another great episode of Journey to Esquire, the podcast. Support, share, subscribe. And for more, visit www.journeytoesquire.com.